Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first State of the Nation address for the Piscataway Indian Nation. We would like to begin our broadcast with an homage to the national anthem of the American Indian movement, the AIM song. As you can see, the history of the American Indian movement is intertwined with the history of the Piscataway Indian Nation. And now, the 29th hereditary Tayac of the Piscataway Indian Nation, Mark Tayac.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chief Mark Tayac. We're here this evening from the Piscataway Indian Nation. I come from the village of my own. My clan is the Beaver Clan. My own is our principal capital village of the Piscataway people. The words Piscataway meaning people of blending of waters, or place of blending of waters. We are the original people of what is known today as the Chesapeake Bay region. The people of the Chesapeake. We are the people that originally inhabited these lands. Our family is from the principal capital village of my own. It's been dated by archaeologists and anthropologists that we had lived there in one permanent and continuous village for over 15,000 years. Our villages were always strategically located along our beautiful waterways, the marshes, the creeks, the rivers that all flow in to the Chesapeake Bay and then into the Atlantic Ocean. The Piscataway people, though, at one time inhabited Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., the entire state of Maryland, and we extended into Delaware, all the way up into northern New Jersey, straight across the state of Pennsylvania, and on up into the Ohio Valley. And how we as Piscataway people defined what was our nation's homeland, our nation's territory. It was defined by how far our language was being spoken. We did not recognize borders, states. We recognized the land that our people inhabited and lived on. Our people spoke an Algonquin dialect of language, and that is how far. We defined our lands and our territories by how far our language was being spoken. And in our language, our family's last name, Tayac, means chief. I am now currently the 29th generation of hereditary chiefs. The chief before me was my father, Chief Billy Redwing Tayac. His father, Chief Turkey Tayac. We currently count back 29 generations of carrying that title of chieftainship for the Piscataway people. My son, Nachi Tayac, when it's my time to go on to the spirit world, he will become the 30th generation. And when it's his time to go on to the spirit world, one of his sons will become the 31st generation. So when we talk about tradition, that is tradition right there. Carrying that title of chieftainship, working in behalf of our people and our nation and our communities. Today, when we say communities, it goes way past being a Piscataway Indian. Here in the United States, as American Indian people, we represent over 500 indigenous tribes or nations. Many of our people speaking different languages, different customs, different traditions, different forms of economics, and tribal governments. Many of our people are very diverse from region to region to region. But we do believe that we are all one people. And what bonds us together is our DNA, our Indian blood. So the Piscataway Nation has welcomed all the different American Indian tribes that have relocated and live here in our state today. At the village of my own, from 1929 to 1939, there was archaeological digs that went on there, and tens of thousands of our ancestral remains were dug up, sent to various museums, universities, and private collections. And it was classified as the second largest archaeological site on the East Coast. An ossuary is how our people were buried. We believed that when we passed away to the spirit world, we were making our final journey. Rest in peace. For 400 years, our people have not had peace here, in our own home, in our own lands. But an ossuary was people that had passed away collectively together. And they believed that they were going back to the womb of our Mother Earth. It was a large mass burial. Well, today, the village of my own has been classified as a national federal park, still being called by the name of our people, Piscataway National Park. In 1979, the United States Congress passed a federal bill, a federal act. Chief Turkey Tayac of the Piscataway Indian Nation was granted the rights to be buried in his ancestral homeland, the homeland of our people. He had a full and traditional Piscataway burial, and he is buried in the ossuary, one of many that were excavated. My own is directly across from Mount Vernon. It's located in Mattinecock, Maryland. It's along the shores of the Potomac River, the river that our people had lived on for 15,000 years. We cannot separate the land and the people. For the generations of the generations before us are intermingled in that soil. When we touch that earth, that soil, we are touching 15,000 years of Indianism. It hasn't been an easy plight for our people. There are many different tribes that once lived here. But the people of the state of Maryland were governed by the village of my own. Like Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. My own has, and still is today our seat of self-government. There's four things, four talking points that we wish for all Marylanders and people throughout the United States to know, and now throughout the world. We are working on what is called repatriation. That is to get our ancestral remains returned back to our people so that they can rest in peace, that they may finish their journey, that their bones and their memories may return back to the womb of our Mother Earth. We wish to see our ancestors returned back to where they came from. We are working with the Smithsonian Institute, the state of Maryland, and the National Park Service. But we need help from each and every one of you. Our plight and our struggle is your plight and your struggle. We all live here today collectively together. Land back. Land back. This is a very beautiful state that we live in here. A state that soil was so rich, that we were an agricultural people, growing our corn, our beans, our squash, our pumpkins. The woods being full of deer, rabbit, that gave life to our people. Water with an abundancy of clams and oysters, a diet that many people today enjoy. Every inch of land, every blade of grass, every drop of water, from the marshes to the creeks, to the rivers, to the bays. Every tree, every leaf, and these trees that produce oxygen, the breath of life, was our land and was our home. And we believe that the state of Maryland is big enough and economically strong enough to return land back to us. We were a land-based people. Community centers. When we look at all the races that inhabited Maryland today, it's a very beautiful state that we live in. A state that is so ethnically diverse. So ethnically diverse that we have Asian Americans, African Americans, Italian Americans, Pacific Islander Americans, and so many other nationalities and races. But we are the only people that have the word American Indian. This shows that this was our home. This shows that this was our land. And we have survived. We have survived as a people. But as all people, and all religions, and all faiths and dominations that have their community centers a place where people can gather, where they can become friends, family, community members. We have tribal communities here throughout the state of Maryland. But we raise the question, why is it that there are so many different religions, so many different denominations of faith that have their churches, that have their community centers, a place where they can congregate and they can determine their own life and their own futures? Why is it that the American Indian in the state of Maryland has no community centers? We wish to keep this Indianism alive. It hasn't been an easy journey for our people. A journey where, with a swipe of a pen, with a swipe of the pen in the 1600s and the 1700s, there was government officials that said, we have solved the Indian problem. There are no more Indians. We have never disappeared. We are not hiding. We are American Indian people. In 1978, the United States Congress passed what is known today as the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. Religious freedom, where the state of Maryland was founded on those words, the words religious freedom. When the indigenous people of this land did not even have that in their own homes. We've navigated through many troubled waters, but we have survived as a people. We wish to see community centers. Our people are looking for technical assistance, where we can create jobs, where we can employ our own tribal members to advocate in our behalf, to advocate in our children's behalf and their children's behalf, that our people may be able to advocate for our next seventh generation still yet to be born. We believe that the state of Maryland is big enough and strong enough. We are working to develop a relationship with the state of Maryland. We are working to build a relationship with our newly elected governor, Governor West Moore. We are working with many churches, many foundations, and as we extended our hand in friendship to the people that came to our shores, and it's 400 years later, and we are still standing collectively together, extending our hands in friendship and as brothers and sisters. So we ask that the people of Maryland stand with the Piscataway Indian Nation. We are the direct descendants of the principal capital village that is known as my own. We ask you to stand with us.
Thank you again for joining us. I will now show some additional footage which the Tayac allowed me to release to the general public. After that, the the presentation will begin again from the beginning.
My grandfather was born in 1895. We have to put that into a time perspective. He was born 5 years later. And all of us know about the massacre that took place on the Lakota people in the state of South Dakota. There was a massacre that is known as Wounded Knee, where 350 plus men, women, children, and elders were massacred and murdered based on their ethnic identity as an Indian person. He was born 5 years after that. As a child, I remember my grandfather saying, "Grandson, I was born in the dark days. The days when it was not socially acceptable to be an American Indian." He was born in a time when it was not socially acceptable to be a Piscataway Indian. He was born on the banks of the Potomac River. He was one of the last people that knew the language, that knew the history, that knew the culture, that knew the traditions. He had became a flickering flame that you will see when a fire is dying out. In the 1970s, when social movements throughout this country started to begin, the social movement of pride, something as simple as saying, it's okay to be an Indian. He was the spark of Indianism for the Piscataway people. The village of my own that has became known as Piscataway National Park. That is where also the Indian movement began here on the East Coast. We look around and we see all these universities, all these colleges, places where people can come and learn and study. But we ask ourselves the question, as a Piscataway Indian, as an American Indian, where do I go to learn about my Indianism? We began holding traditional ceremonies. It was a part of the revitalization to uplift our people once again, where we would say something as simple, it's okay to be an Indian. So we went there and we would gather And we would sit and listen to our elders, and they would tell us the stories of our grandmothers, the stories of our grandfathers. And we would once again renew our connection to that land. But many places, all up and down this East Coast, keep in mind, we were the people that experienced the second landing here in this country. We did not know what smallpox was. We did not know what tuberculosis was, where it devastated our people. And our people had to live and survive the best way they knew how to exist. This movement said, it's okay. 4 times a year, we would come together not only as Piscataways, but we welcomed all the neighboring tribes. When we crossed over into Virginia, we have the Rappahannocks. We have the Chickahominies. We have the Upper Mattaponi and Pemattaponi. We have the Pamunkey and other tribes. We go into Delaware, and we have the Mattinecock people. We go into New Jersey, and we have the Mattinecock and Lenape people. We welcomed many tribes here to our home, that it would be a place that our people could practice Indianism. We began in November, where we held our Feast of the Dead, where we would honor all the people that have gone on before us, the people that have gone on to the spirit world, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our aunties, our uncles, our children, anyone who's passed away. We took the time to remember them and to give thanks, for they are the ones that kept this Indianism alive for us today. In the winter, we would gather and we would hold what we call our midwinter ceremonies, where we would light fires and make prayers using tobacco. For our people have always believed that tobacco is sacred, and it is our way of communication with the Creator. We would offer prayers for the strength of our unborn generations still yet to be born. We would offer prayers for our young children, that our children may follow in these footsteps. But it was a time where we could gather and renew our history. I would like to take one moment and talk about wampum belts. Our people made belts that were made from beads from the quahaug clam that was known as wampum. There are many different wampum belts that was made by the coastal tribes that lived along the Atlantic Ocean. But one of the belts that was made was done by the Haudenosaunee people, that's also known as the Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy. It's known as the Two-Row Wampum. And in the wampum belt, in the center, there's a row. That represents the water, the gift of life. That on this water, this river, we will travel together. No one's going anywhere. We have to find ways to understand each other. And there was a ship that was done with this wampum belt. The ship would represent the colonial people and their way of life. Their teachings would stay in their ship. And on the other side, there was a canoe. And the native people and native ways would stay in the canoe. That we will go down this path of life together. We will respect one another. We will recognize one another. But the native people will stay in their canoe. And the colonial people would stay in their ship. But we'll go down that path together. We believe that the state of Maryland is big enough and strong enough and powerful enough to stay in their ship and give us some of our land back. In the spring of the year, when our Mother Earth awakens, we come together to recognize that this earth is our mother. And we see the blades of grass, the leaves on the trees, animals coming out of hibernation. We live on this land that we call our Mother Earth. And we have to honor her for the life that she has given us. In the summer, when we hold our green corn ceremony, corn was the subsistence of our diet. The stalk of the corn representing the backbone of the family. And we would honor our women, the mothers that gave life to our people and to our children. And all the ears of corn representing our young ones, our children. For our children are our next generation. So we said, it's okay to be an Indian and to practice our spiritual teachings. It's okay to learn our songs, songs that our people have sang for thousands of years. It's okay to use our drum. It's okay to say, I am an American Indian, and to say that with pride, and to stand holding your head high, knowing that you are a direct descendant of the people that have inhabited this land for tens of thousands of years. To say that with pride and dignity, but to know we have survived. And part of that, we worked because we were so close to Washington, D.C. We worked with native tribes that came to Washington seeking their rights. rights that were guaranteed to them under treaties. We've worked with so many tribes here in the United States, but we've worked with tribes from Canada. When we think of United States, we think of North America, we think of American Indians. There's images that are conjured that American Indians only live within the borders of what is known as United States. We never recognized those borders. Our borders are the entire Western Hemisphere. And there was something simple that was said. It's okay to be an Indian. We worked with Native people throughout Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Ecuador, Bolivia, the native tribes of the Amazons, and what bonds the Western Hemisphere together is our DNA, our Indian blood. In the village of my own, that became our university. The floor was the earth. The ceiling was the roof. The trees were the walls. And we were connected to the land once again as a people. And we worked all up and down this East Coast with every tribe to say it's okay to be an Indian. Once again, we worked for the protection of our ancestors. Where Chief Turkey is buried, there was a blockhouse built there. A cinder block house that was built over top an ossuary. Come see the Indian. We were used as a form of tourism. But through our work in 1976, we had that blockhouse taken down and our ancestors were reburied. 1979, Chief Turkey Tayac was buried in that same ossuary. We've had over 50 years of negotiations with the National Park Service. Today, we have free flow access to this site and to this land. It was from the revitalization, words that were so simple, it's okay to be an Indian. It's okay to practice Indianism, to speak our languages, to practice our history, to follow our customs, to live by our traditional teachings, and to practice our own religion. Today, we have a very good working relationship. We've all navigated through those troubled times where we all want to see the right thing done. Everyone throughout the Mattinecock area, we have extended our hands of friendship, and they too have extended theirs back to us. We all want to see the ancestors that were stolen from the village of my own to return back there. We all want to be able to live together collectively on this land that we call our Mother Earth. We all want to have a future generation. We all want to see the waters that have been contaminated by pollution. Water, the gift of life. We want to see the revitalization of our waters, our marshes, our creeks, our rivers, our bays. So I would like to ask each and every one of you to look into your hearts and to stand with the Piscataway Indian Nation. We are all living here collectively together. And in the words of Sitting Bull, let us put our minds together to see what kind of world we can create for our next seventh generation. I ask you to stand with us. Let us work together collectively so that we can build a stronger and brighter Maryland. Thank you.